this great institution. Dean Theodore Ruger, Dean, and Benjamin Bernard G. Siegel, Professor of Law.
Thank you. We gather here today to celebrate the life and legacy of one of our most distinguished alumni, Judge Tama Myers-Clark, a graduate of the class of 1972. It's fitting that we gather in this room, which for Judge Myers-Clark and her classmates would have been the reading room of the library. She was a tremendous student here and at Morgan State, and we can imagine her 50 years ago today in the spring of 1970, working hard in this room, learning the law that she would apply so well in her distinguished career as a district attorney and a judge. I want to thank all of you for being here, family members, friends, colleagues of Judge Tama Myers-Clark. The wonderful ceremony from the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which was very moving for all of us. Thank you for being here. I also see distinguished members of the federal and state judiciary. And I think we all intersected with Judge Myers-Clark at different points in her life and career, but we all are here because we recognize the tremendous impact she had, the role that she played in the legal community, both here in Philadelphia and nationally, and we will spend the next couple hours remembering her and hearing from people from various times of her life. We are so proud of Judge Myers-Clark here at the law school. She is an exemplar of what we are trying to do more and better, which is bring students from all backgrounds, support them, encourage them to go into careers in public service and the judiciary, where we have increased those types of career paths in recent years, and she's an exemplar of somebody who came out of this law school and for almost half a century was tremendously impactful in those roles. Some of the speakers in some of the Alpha Kappa Alpha speakers spoke to the continuity of life and love that we reflect on today, and so as I think of Judge Myers-Clark when she was a student here sitting in this room 50 years ago, I think of just a few weeks ago and a few weeks from now, if we're holding events in this room. We have first-year students gathering for instruction and conferences. We have Admitted Students Day, which we typically hold in here every spring, and so I think of people who we can look back 50 years and think of the judge's tremendous work here, and after she left the law school, we can look ahead 50 years when I see these students that follow in her legacy that she has paved the way for, and I can imagine great things for our students, and I want to continue to celebrate and remind them of the legacy of Judge Tama Myers-Clark. So on behalf of the law school, we are extremely grateful and proud that Judge Myers-Clark attended here and is connected with us, and I'm tremendously grateful that all of you are with us today. So I will turn the podium over to Judge Myers-Clark's brother, Samuel Myers. Thank you.
Dean Ruger, Judge Braxton, friends, family, distinguished guests. Long before Tama was a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in the county of Philadelphia, long before Tama was assistant district attorney in the city of Philadelphia. Long before Tama was a clerk for Associate Justice Leon Higginbotham. Long before Tama was an attorney at the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, long before Tama was the 5,000th person to pass the Pennsylvania Bar Association, long before Tama had me drive the trailer truck up from Baltimore so that she could check into her dorm room, which was a couple blocks from here, where they had mice running over the ceiling. Long before Tama was the first female president of the Student Government Association at Morgan State University. Long before Tama was the line president of Alpha Delta chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Long before Tama was the queen of the MEDASO, the Medical Dental Society Club, cotillion in Baltimore, Maryland. Long before Tama was the valedictorian of her class at Charles Hamilton Houston Junior High School, graduating with a grade point average of 98.7. Long before Tama was the leading voice at PS 181, where teachers, vice principals, and principals always were able to call on Tama when their misbehaving younger brother needed to be scolded and sent home. Long before all of these accolades that Tama has achieved in her life, Tama was an athlete. Tama was an exceptional swimmer. Every Tuesday night at Carver Vocational High School was open swim night. Carver is down Buffalo Street, I guess about 5 blocks down from Windsor Avenue. And it turns out that there was a rule. The rule was that the only way you got to go on the high diving board was that you'd have to swim 200 yards in the other end of the pool. But Tama, instead of just simply coasting along and swimming her 200 yards, had to beat every single swimmer, male, female, 18-year-old. So Tama was an athlete, but Tama also was a tennis player. Tama's backhand was so powerful that the coach wanted to time how fast the ball was being projected because they thought that Tama had the potential for being the second African-American major tennis player. So I just want to bring some greetings from the Mays family. So I had to grow up with being in the shadow of an exceptional intellect, a great storyteller, and a loving sister, and caring family member.
Spoken as only a brother could say. Very much so. We'll now hear from Ms. Lori Zaganikoff. Lori.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Lori Salganikoff. I'm the Executive Director of a community history, preservation, and open space nonprofit named the Chestnut Hill Conservancy. I'm joined here by Shirley Hansen, who was among the founders of the Chestnut Hill Conservancy more than 50 years ago, and Ron Pete, who was a neighbor of Tama Myers Clark since 1999. Thank you very much for welcoming us here to honor Tama Myers Clark. I first spoke to Judge Clark 2 years ago when her brother Samuel was kind enough to put us in touch. She and I talked many times over the last 2 years about the significant, historic, modern house that she and her husband lived in here in the Chestnut Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia. If you aren't familiar with it, the home at 717 Glengarry Road is a mid-century modern masterpiece built in 1963 for Dorothy Shipley White by the internationally significant Philadelphia architects Mitchell Jergla Associates. It is one of Mitchell Jergla's few single-family residences, an innovative design that exemplifies the cultural and social heritage of Chestnut Hill as an incubator of progressive modernism in post-war Philadelphia, and an important early commission in the career of a firm that significantly influenced the architectural development of the city and the nation. The home is one of the three most important modern homes in the area, along with the Margaret Escherich House of Louis Kahn and Robert Venturi's Vanaventuri House. All were designed within 2 years of each other in Chestnut Hill for single women by three of the most influential Philadelphia architects of the area. Dorothy Shipley White was, like Judge Clark, an accomplished woman in her own right, a noted scholar of French history with a doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania. Judge Clark and her husband Peter had bought the home in 1998, and she told me once that it was Peter who had fallen in love with the place. She'd mentioned that although she hadn't been living there for a while, it had been hard to even consider giving the place up after he passed because of his love for it. However, it was difficult for her to take care of the house from afar, and for several years her neighbor, Ron Pete, kindly took care of mowing and caring for the grounds and snow for some time and stayed in touch with her. After a point, my organization, the Chestnut Hill Conservancy, stepped in, and at her request, we met with landscaping firms, sent her photos and proposals, helped her retain the landscaping firm that she chose. We also organized and sent several credible offers to purchase and restore the home. There was always a lot of interest. But Judge Clark was more comfortable having us be the intermediary. In fact, interest in the home remains almost overwhelmingly strong. Thankfully, the home is now honored and protected with listing on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places. Although she was dealing with the passing of her husband, the care of her family, and her own health issues, every time we spoke, Judge Clark was always kind, gracious, and rather formal in the most charming way. I'm afraid I had to fight the urge to respond to her with a Southern accent. She consistently greeted me with warmth, even though we both wound up with things to do at the end of the calls. I always truly enjoyed our conversations and was very glad to have been able to help. I've had a chance to speak with some of the women that Judge Clark inspired as young lawyers in her courtroom, and what an impact her carriage, presence, kind-heartedness, and professionalism had on them. Many of them lived in Chestnut Hill. Each one of them have shared that Judge Clark's strength of character and dignified presence had a profound and lasting effect on them as lawyers and as women. I am so sorry that I only just recently learned of their experiences. I would have loved to have heard more about this from Judge Clark's experience and perspective. I would have loved to have asked whether she knew that her Chestnut Hill home had been built by a strong, professional woman of style with something to say. I will miss talking with Judge Clark, but I am grateful for the time that we did have. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Judge the Honorable Rosalind Robinson, one of my colleagues on the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas.
Good morning. I'm Judge Rosalind Robinson. I'm here today as a current member and past president of the Pentown chapter of the Links Incorporated to speak on behalf of the chapter about our former member, the Honorable Tama Myers-Clark. I want to thank Judge Clark's family for allowing us to have this opportunity to share our remembrances of Judge Clark, our sister Link. The Links Incorporated is an international not-for-profit corporation established right here in Philadelphia in 1946. Our membership consists of more than 16,000 professional women of color in 288 chapters located in 41 states, the District of Columbia, the Bahamas, and the United Kingdom. It is one of the nation's oldest and largest volunteer service organizations of extraordinary women who are committed to enriching, sustaining, and ensuring the culture and economic survival of African Americans and persons of African ancestry. We have a long tradition of promoting and engaging in educational, civic, and intercultural activities that enrich the lives of members of the Black community at large. We like to say we are linked through friendship and service. At this time, I would first like to ask the members of the Pentown chapter who are here to stand briefly, and please be joined by any other members of the Links present. Will you please stand briefly? Thank you. The Pentown chapter was chartered here in Philadelphia in 1975. Judge Clark was inducted into the Pentown chapter in 1981. She served as a loyal member for some 30 years until her resignation in 2011. Although she was not a charter member, she was inducted into the group very early and was instrumental in formulating the mores and culture of our chapter, some of which remain until today. Speaking to several of our seasoned members regarding Judge Clark, they remember her as having a unique view of life and being persistent in her beliefs. Now, before I take my seat, please allow me to digress briefly, for I knew Tama on many other levels. I met Tama in the early 1970s when Tama was the first full-time law clerk of the Honorable Doris May Harris, a Pentown chapter charter member. I succeeded Tama and served as Judge Harris's second clerk. I believe Judge Harris was a graduate of this honorable institution here, this law school. After my clerkship, I joined the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, again following Tama. At that time, fledgling assistant district attorneys did not have our own offices or cubicles. I remember Tama and I being amongst 15 or 20 assistants sharing space in a room on the 5th floor of City Hall. I remember observing Tama try a jury trial because that is what you did as colleagues. On this one occasion, her opposing attorney was a public defender who is my friend until today. She says she remembers Tama for always being impeccably dressed. During the course of the trial, Judge Clark, as an assistant district attorney, wore a yellow suit that was so dazzling that I think my friend almost lost her focus on the trial. Also, when we were in the DA's office, it was a time when many of us were busy trying to furnish our first homes. I remember Tama for bringing to our attention the great bargains to be found at the Strawbridge and Clothier warehouse sale on Island Avenue, and for guiding us how to take best advantage of these sales on early Saturday mornings, what time we should get there, where we should park, and how we should go about buying our goods there. And I finally remember Tama as a colleague on the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas. Tama, may you rest in peace until we meet again. Thank you.
As you can see, Tama had many friends who were judges, and judges have various talents. One of our more talented judges is Judge Lori Dumas, who will render a selection for us this morning.